Welcome back, everybody. Just Mike here. Anyway, today we have a clock to work on that I do believe was their grandmother's, and it's not a cheap clock because it does have extra moving parts on it. Don't know what's wrong with it. We have to dive into it and see, but let me get that clock and show you what it looks like. So this is the clock. Obviously it's an 8-day clock. This here weight has a 44 on it, which I don't know what 44s are on pounds. We're 2.52 pounds. The kilograms 1.145. Anyway, this clock has a man here that's supposed to be milking this cow. This cow is not an original cow, and it's lost, and so they found this cow and stuck on there. It's supposed to be here, so it looks like the guy's milking the cow. There's a dog that came unglued, and the puppy, and this puppy here, it's glued in here a little bit. I have a log flying around that belongs on top of that pole there. This here looks like it got broke off, not much glue on it to hold the barrels on the bench. I see it's got a water wheel, so that's the music. It also has the dancers on here. These hands are wooden hands, and so I don't know if this clock is that old. Underneath there it does say made in Germany, so that means it was after World War I or II, I do believe. It does have the rocks on the roof just on the front here. It's not on the sides, but it is what we'd consider an expensive clock. Number one is because it's an 8-day clock, but number two, it has extra action. And like I say, he's supposed to have a rod here that's sticking out here to have him show he's milking the cow. We're going to have to take a look at that. It's rusted up. One hand's solid and this hand here moves. So we'll have to figure this out and see just what all works or doesn't work. The box is loose from the frame, and the front is coming off. So it's got at least two tunes to it for the amount of what that there says. Let's pop this open if we can. When she shipped it, she tried to silence the gong. Normally you stick a paper towel in between these springs, kind of like this, and it helps deaden it. But that's a big spring on there. In fact, beans out, we're looking at that. Let me see if I have a tape measure here. Yes, I do. So we're approximately 5 3/4 inch there, so that's got a nice gong to it. A deeper gong the bigger they are. So this is the interior of the box, and looking at the music drum, I would say it only has 2 tunes. It's not that big. Don't know how fast it goes around. Also, I've noticed this fan here, which normally you don't see this, or I don't see this except on your older movements. And so there again, we're talking about this on older movements, and the hands are wooden, so I don't know how old this clock is. And let's see, the tunes, like I say, come over and make him look like he's milking a cow. Over on this side, you can't see all this, is where it'll attach to the water wheel, and of course coming up to the people there. What I'm going to do is, I know this everything's loose on here, but what I'm going to do is try to figure out how I can pull the chain to see what works and what doesn't. Now over on this side, you can see there used to be a building here. There's 2 nails sticking out, and that I'm sure came over and must have covered over this here so you wouldn't see everything moving. Like I said, there's a gear there that sticks out. Not that you're going to see any of this or really be paying too much attention to that when the clock is operating. Get you a closer view. You can see this here is a star wheel, and so what it probably does is comes up and drops, and it's got this other arm too. Oh, I see. It's got the 2 arms. This is all bent, but it's got the 2 arms that move. And this star wheel, one tooth is bent out and then the other tooth is bent in, and so this will be separated because both arms move to a separate wire. And I don't know, let's get this a little closer maybe, so you can see his arms moving separately. Here's the one, and then the other one. Oops. So we'll figure this out. Let's see, the cow is supposed to stand right here, and so that's hiding the gear. So whether this, what type of house this was, I don't know. I'm not going to worry too much about it. If I can kind of figure it out and build something real quick, that's fine. But the main thing is getting this clock cleaned, oiled, and getting him to work again. So at the bottom of the box, unwrapping these chains, I've noticed they've got a ring on here. So this way, when you're winding it up, this is smaller on the hook and the ring is bigger. So you're not going to keep beating this and making the hole bigger too soon, let's just say. Each one of them has that on there. Also, we have this. It's a shut off for the music or the cuckooing. Let me set this up and see if we can get this thing to cuckoo or tick and whatever else it'll do. So this one's not moving. So the timing's off there because this one hasn't dropped yet. And let's see if the music will play now. Okay, I might have to be pushing or pulling on that chain. In fact, let's put the weight on the music side only. So the music isn't triggering. It does tick. And so I think what we're going to do is go ahead and clean that. I don't know if you can see this or not, but the box is lifting off of there. So I'm going to have to, it's either got very short staples in there, but I'm going to have to re-glue this back on to get this thing safe again. So I've already taken the nuts off the nut off the hand, got the hands off. Now I'm going to go ahead and take these hooks off. I'm going to take it off just above the ring so I don't have to undo the ring and this, which makes sense. This here chain, it's light enough I can go ahead and lift like I normally do. Usually on an 8-day chain you'd give it a twist. These are a heavier chain, but they're not that heavy. I worked on one of these before. The reason why the bottom is so loose is because evidently they didn't want you to ever work on this clock. I don't know. They don't normally care. They just want to ship them out the doors. Anyway, this wire here that does the shut off, I had to actually bend the circle out in order to get it through because you can't do it on the inside because the front of the clock is holding that wire in there. So we got that off. Here's a little farm scene, we'll say, where the clock sat, and those staples they used to hold this on was just hold it in place because they're so short. I don't know if you can see one there or not. And I think what they were planning is the glue is supposed to hold this thing together, which makes it kind of fragile. Here now you can see the little man and his arms. That's one wire. This is the other wire. So I think the next thing we're going to do is take this music box out. It's got the 3 screws here. Here's where it attaches to the water wheel out front here. So once we get this off, I'd imagine this might slide out. It does have little screws in here to hold certain things, but I might not have to mess with them. We'll see. So let me get this out next. So we got the 3 screws out. And there's cobwebs on the screws because something went inside the block there. Normally a spider, but I don't know for sure. I don't know if this means anything or not, but there you go. That might be a code for the tune that's on here. And this doesn't look bad at all. And then this here that operates the water wheel, that gear connects to it. X clear over to here. And evidently right there is where the where it goes to have this clock operate the music. And like I say, we'll get this out to see what's stopping it from working. And now I'm going to disconnect the bellow lift wires from the arms. And if you're going to attempt something like this, which just would be a bad clock to work on for your first one, get pictures. Normally, here's the longer arm, and it's coming to the outside, which makes sense because it's up here. I don't like the way the paper is. It's like it came unfolded or whatever, and I don't know if I can reshape that and then clamp it down or not. It's not hurting anything, it does make the noise. Anyway, I'm going to straighten the wires here, maybe, to the lift wire. So it's an L shape. I'll show you in a second, and then pop it off of there. So I straightened it out so I get it out. This here just catches up onto the nail that's on the bellow, or yeah, the bellow itself. You don't bend this or anything else. It's already supposedly automatically there. So we're gonna save this wire to the side. We'll never throw it away anyway, but we want to take out the next lift wire and see if they're the same size or what. I'll bend that to an L shape so I can pop it out. So there's the L shapes, and you can see the inner arm that goes to this lift wire is shorter, and it runs the bellow clear on the inside. But I'm going to go ahead and take the whistle boxes out. Now, someone has obviously worked on it because of the marking down here. I don't know why it says cow, but it says cow, unless it belongs to the cow clock, is how they're keeping it separated. I don't know. But I notice up here it says front, so they're telling you it's a front whistle, or that's a reminder. We do have 2 screws here, and they're Phillips head. So the Phillips head also is telling me this isn't that old of a clock. I mean, I'm sure it has age to it, but it's not that old of a clock. So let me get these out just to make it easier to pull all of this out that we're not going to be hanging up on it. I'm also going to take this pendulum wire off because that's when it hangs down a little bit further, and it always catches everything. So I'll put a screwdriver in there, open it up more than what it is, and pop it out. I don't know, like I say, the history of this clock, but you can see there's tape on here. What the tape's for is there's extra holes in here that they are trying to cover up, which if you're not hitting the proper holes, the same hole I should say, then you're causing more leaks and you're going to have less of a whistle going on there. And they did to both of them. And also, you can see here where someone rebuilt these, because this is Tyvek paper, in which there's nothing wrong with that paper, because it seems to last pretty good. But you can tell, like I say, someone's been into this clock, and I have no date. It says back there, telling you it's a back whistle box. By the looks of it, I can pull this thing out now, and I can leave the mechanism in here that goes to the water wheel and to the man, because it's not necessarily attached. It's been put in there, and then the movement was set over it with a L-shaped, I guess to say, or Z-shaped feet to hold it up off of it. So let me get that out, and I'll be back on that. So it's all undone. Let's go ahead and see if we can pull this thing out. The only pain will be this wire here, and it might fall out because I do have it bent. Yep, it did. That's good. So this has a oily film on it. And there's what it says it is. So there's a regular, oh, let's see. Oh, there's some more, something down here if you're interested. And this is what operates the music. And like I say, for some reason, the music's not going. I can see oil that's possibly been sprayed in here because everything's just kind of soaked and there's a drip right there. There's a spring wire there that's not attached to anything. It's probably supposed to be hooked to that. Let me see here. So obviously I've never worked on one of these before. And like I say, I do believe it is a newer style because of all the Phillips screws and whatnot. And the way things trigger, I guess we'll say, is odd to me to get the music to work. I got it working now, but I'm not sure what its original problem was. It does have the spring wire here that helps hold this down, and once this finally comes down, there's another part in here that triggers the music to go ahead and play, which will lift this here up so this disc can go around. And there's must be some type of a timing thing in there, which we'll see as we get the plates off, because it'll go, at least now, it'll go around several times before something drops and stops it. So I got the clock box re-glued to the bottom. Had to glue this down because it was off. We got the water wheel back on. That's the only way to get it off is to move the main box here totally off to get that off. And it does have a screw which wasn't tightened onto the shaft. So it did spin, but it didn't spin. It could have stopped, we'll say. And then I've also waxed this a little bit. I re-glued the dogs back on, the log back on, the seats back on. The cow is just a play toy cow because the original cow was lost. And I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but there's a chance I'm going to try to carve a cow that would be more like what it should be. I think it's supposed to be a little bit bigger. So the first thing I'd like to do is take this off. And to get it off, there's parts we need to take off to get to. There's a screw underneath this gear, screw here, and a screw there and a screw there to get this to come off. But first I do believe I'm going to have to take this governor off, because this gear needs to come off in order to get to the screw that's underneath here. And so we'll take this one off first, I do believe. So there's that screw, and then you go from the back side, or it's actually the front side of the clock, and catch that screw in there. That's kind of nice. You loosen it, and it just slides right off. You can see all that oil just setting in there. Like I say, this was sprayed. And if you take this off, down inside this part here where this comes in, there should be a little ball bearing in there, so don't lose it if you take that part apart. So I got that loose and it just slid down. I can slide it back off. There's a screw. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to get pictures all the way around this thing, because that's going to be key to your success of getting this thing back together again. So there it shows I've got that screw there I can take out now. And each of these has got a washer on them. This here lever is the lever that shuts off the cuckooing, and it slides underneath. Here's why this is bent up a little bit. This has got a, we'll call it a spring washer on it. It's bent up and down, I guess we'll call it. Doesn't have a washer underneath it. And let's see if this will just pop right out. There we go. And of course we have a little bit of rust on the plate. Normally I don't do, besides cleaning it, I don't do too much with the rust or anything. So because we're on this side, it'd be nice to get all this stuff off of here. So I'm going to start with the star wheel. And then we'll get the hammer off. And it's just bent around. So all I have to do is flick this off of here. Now we can turn this to unlock it. The small arm's the one that locks it into place. It's right down here. And then if you took your pictures, you'll notice this is the shorter lift arm and this is the longer lift arm. So spinning this around, I need to take these levers off, and each of them have a small screw on them that I can take them off. This one here I'm going to pay attention to, is it has a spring that I'm going to guess is pushing this. I don't know if it's, oh, it is Z'd, or whatever you want to call that. Let's see if I can get you closer, you can see this. So in other words, it's not where it's supposed to be. Right where my finger's touching is the where you can tell where it's been hooked, or it's supposed to be hooked to something. And this probably has to come underneath the plate here to push this down. So this whole thing lifts up, it's cocked around this screw, comes around, and I'm sure that this is supposed to be cocked clear over here like this. Because of those screws being on there, I'm hoping this will be an easy clock to get timed, because you have your levers here that go in and catch your wheels and whatnot, and so you can have this thing run and play all the way through. And we have a E-clip down here and an E-clip here. We'll take those off and then see if we can pop all this off. This here, this might have to come off. No, it's held on with this E-clip here. Anyway, there's such small E-clips. Let me get those off and I'll be back. So we got them off. Now we can take this here, washer off. This is what's going to hold all that together inside. So now we should be able to get these off of here. Like I say, this is kind of odd to me to see this on there. That there big deal here is what's gonna hold the hour hand. And like I say, the hands are wood. This is just soaked in oil. It does have its plastic riser on there, and yes, bugs or something that's been in here. And now we have this spring here that helps push us down. Big long one there. And so we have this and this. Let's see what it's going to take to get those off. I see we got a clip here, E-clip for that one, and for this one there's an E-clip right here, and that's also attached to the part I'm sure gets a cuckoo bird to stay out when he's supposed to. But we'll take a look at that carefully as we take this apart. So let me get those E-clips out. So we got the E-clip off from inside there. Let's open this up. And let's catch that part that wants to fall down in. And we also have this E-clip off. Let's see. This also has another E-clip inside. You see how it just sucks back in? Inside there, there's a spring on it and an E-clip down in there. That's be a difficult one to get, but got to do it. Let's see if we can get that out of there. Thinking about it before I took that out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that on here, because when I take it apart this way, that's the easy way to get it back on, because it is spring loaded and whatnot. And that was probably the same with this one here. So as I put all the gears back in, before I put this back plate on, I'll have to have these in place in order to have it done easily, I guess we'll say. So realistically, everything's off except the Cuckoo bird arm. We're going to go ahead and take that off now. I see it's just wrapped around, which someone's, like I say, someone has been in here because this isn't wrapped all the way on, which it still worked. And now what you want to do is separate these just a little bit with the screwdriver. Don't get carried away. In which, again, hopefully you got a picture, but this part here, down inside there, is, it has to be in here so this here can rock over and catch it. So in so many words, everything's off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the nuts off and then carefully try to lift this off of here so we can get another picture of what it looks like. So when you're putting it back together again, of course this plate won't be on there, but you'll see a lot better of the order these things are supposed to be in. Now I will admit I don't necessarily like these movements that got a full plate on them, because it kind of makes it difficult to see. And of course, like I just kind of explained, there they have some things hidden in here, in which with this plate off you'll be able to see it easier. And because this is an 8-day clock, realistically it's good to have a full plate, because with those weights hanging on this clock, on this movement, it's a lot of stress on the plates themselves. So let's try to get this off carefully. So you can see someone's sprayed the oil in there. They tried, they didn't know any better, and it might have worked, but the thing is, with all that oil collects dust, and because it's a cuckoo clock, cuckoo clocks are what they consider a filthy clock, because they're open, because the chains come up in. They got the cuckoo bird that pops out. This one has the dancers. So this here is continuously getting dust, and that's why you don't want to spray your clock, and you don't want to over oil your clock, because that's what the problem's going to be. So let's slowly take this thing apart. We'll start with this. It works nicely. You can see where the chain was, it's starting to goop up with that dust and whatnot down the side there. This one here would be the Cuckoo side. I do believe, because it has these levers in here that would catch the bird. See the oil just swamped on there. The timing pin has been bent. We're gonna have to straighten that out. So this one's gonna stay. Oh, I guess it's not. This is a different one. Now, because of the type of movement this is, there's a lot of gears that might look the same and whatnot. And so I'm going to keep this set of gears and levers together. The center set would be the time. I'm going to keep them together. And the musical side, actually, I think that was I don't know which one's the musical side. Anyway, if this is the musical side, actually, I think this is a Cuckoo. That was the musical side over here. So the Cuckoo side I'll keep separate also. And the reason why I'm saying this is the Cuckoo side is because you saw where we took the fan off of this thing that went to the music box. So why would the music box have two fans or governors? This here governor would be for the Cuckoo bird to slow down so he doesn't sound like a machine gun when he's cuckooing along. So anyway, we'll go ahead and finish taking these off and putting the pile that goes all with them. I'll wait to take this here E-clip off because it's got the spring and I want to get these off first. So now we'll go over here. That one might not come off. It probably has the Pac-Man on it. See, it's got that little bit of rust look to it. That's just the oil that was sprayed in here. This is working well. And you'll notice, because these are dove down or whatever, that's because they have to miss a gear that's in there to be able to work. So that's all I can get off now. Okay, we'll go to the time side. Just look at that dirt sitting on there. This one's having a little bit of a struggle. It might need to be, well, it's going to get cleaned. And just winding it is what I'd say the struggle is. There's a chance that there washer looking thing that's pressed on there, and it could be a little bit too tight, but winding an 8-day clock, you'd probably never notice it because it takes something to pull that weight up. So to get this off, there's an E-clip here, so we'll take that off. And while I'm here, I'm going to take that off camera also, because I don't want to lose it and lose the spring also. So everything off that I'm going to worry about taking off. This here holds a minute hand. This here has got the Pac-Man on it. They can be pried off. I'm not going to. And this here gear is wedged on there also, and so I'm not going to mess with taking it off either. I got the two plates clean. I didn't leave them in but more than 10 minutes because this does have a lacquer finish on it, and being that it didn't start coming off, I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a toothpick in each one of these holes and clean them out, because ultrasonic cleaner doesn't always get everything out. So far these look like they're coming out pretty clean. There's a very small amount of something on there. Anytime you clean your plates, you always want to run a toothpick through it because, well, number one, toothpicks are cheap. And if you have to waste 4 or 5 toothpicks until it comes clean, do that, because you want everything out of here. Now my guess is they use WD-40 maybe to spray on there, and realistically that might have helped clean some of this out. The only thing is, spraying it with WD-40 and not taking it apart, that stuff stays in where each one of the gears are. It just loosened it up, and in time it'll probably thicken back up again. Now on these movements, any movement, you want to take them out and oil each one of your pivots about every 5 to 7 years. At least that's what's suggested for Cuckoo clocks, because of the dust factor. And while you have it out, have a can of air to blow it out before you re-oil it. So that way you can get all the dust, cobwebs, whatever's in there out. So now I'll get this plate done and I'll do the other one too. So as you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3 piles. There's 4 there. And what that is, like I said before when I cleaned it, because there's so many gears that look really close or whatever, I wanted to separate them, so when I put them back in the frame of the clock, each one of these are considered a train, and I can get the trains in there without mixing the gears up. Now all I have to do is look at my phone, because I had the picture on there, and get this thing back together. And I'm going to do that off of camera, because it does seem to be a daunting task of getting it in there possibly, and it just makes it easier on me. So why is it that I show taking the movement apart and not normally putting it back together, or at least this one, because of the plates, and it'd be difficult to show you. But there was one piece I had left over, and for some reason I couldn't see it when I took the picture of just the gears. And that's what's nice, is you can go back on your pictures, in which myself, I went back on the video taking this apart, and voila, there was a piece. I had to take this whole plate off, take it all apart to get clear down to the piece I was missing that should have been put on at the very first. So that's why I normally show taking this apart in all my movements.